Living Heritage is designed to highlight, examine, and celebrate elements of the rich cultural heritage of St. Kitts and Nevis. Journey with us as we explore our distinct and immersive culture. Welcome to a life of pride in our past and confidence in our present and future. Welcome to Living Heritage. The Department of the Creative Economy presents Living Heritage, ICH documentary series of St. Kitts and Nevis. Today, we feature the ICH domain of traditional craftsmanship and the element of pottery. Following the evolution theory, it is said that early man would weave baskets and make them waterproof by pasting natural clay on the bottom. It is thought that one day, by accident, a clay-bottom basket fell into a fire, and amazingly it became hard. Thus, the beginning of pottery and ceramics. Settle down and go on a relaxing journey with us as our traditional knowledge bearer, Carla Astaphan, who has honed her craft for over 30 years, tells us about her element pottery.
Hi, I'm Carla Astaphan. I am a potter, and the name of my business, The Potter's House. I make pottery, I teach pottery, I sell pottery. Those are the things that I do here. I go out to sell my work, so I've been doing this for about 50 plus years. I went to New York and studied interior design, so I was actually practicing as an interior design decorator. So while in New York, I had actually bid on some pottery that was made by an interior design student who had already graduated. And I just found that I had a love for pottery. But even beyond that, as I'm speaking to you, I'm recalling that as a child, we had those yapper pots and coal pots that they make in Evas. We had miniature ones that my great-grandmother, from what my mother told me later on, my great-grandmother at some point in her life was a huckster, and she would travel up the island. It is even said that she may have been from St. Kitts. So she used to travel the islands, and she would bring home for her grandchildren these little coal pots, the miniature coal pots, the miniature yapper, the miniature, what you all call the monkey. So I remember as children, those were some of our toys that we played with. So it goes that far back for me. Doing the workshop, I just sort of fell in love with being able to finally do something with my hands. I couldn't sew very well. I can sew, but not very well. I'd actually gone to sewing classes, so I didn't stick. So being able to do something with my hands became something that I fell in love with. I think I would have been about 30 when I started, or maybe a little, could be about 30. I think I was about 30 years old. There was a program, a workshop held by the Venezuelan Institute for Culture and Cooperation. About 35 of us took part in that workshop. I think there were 2 sessions. There was a morning session, which I went to, and there was an evening session. So the person who came from Venezuela, a very well-known sculptor, famous sculptor in Venezuela, was brought here by the Venezuelan Institute, and he ran that workshop for, I believe, 3 weeks. After we had made all of this work, during the workshop, we did a pit firing at the beach. So everybody's work was in there, and when the potter fired it, the next day when we went back, there was nothing. So all the work we had done over the period got lost because it totally disintegrated. We had used clay from the Southeast Peninsula. We had dug out the side of the mountain to get the clay. We had gone to Connery to get the clay, and we had processed the clay ourselves. Not knowing the properties of that clay and the fact that it just could not take the firing, we lost all our work. Fortunately for me, there was a woman there who was a Peace Corps volunteer. Her name was Mary House. She's still alive. She's in her 80s. And she attended the workshop as well. And we became fast, close friends. And she told me about pottery in Nevis. And so we started going over to Nevis to dig our clay. And using the same methods that the Nevisian potters were using, we did a practice. We would meet up and make work. And that's how it started for me. So that was in 1993. By 1994, she went to Dominica, where I'm from, and she discovered a pottery there. I was on holiday in Dominica at the time, and we met up, we went to the pottery, took pictures, I was all excited. So I decided I would go back home for a month that summer, and I would really sink my teeth into learning to throw on the wheel. And so that's how I added. So from the program that the Venezuelans had done was a hand building workshop where we did sculpture and we did hand building, different styles of hand building. Now I was able to do the wheel, and the wheel is fast. I mean, once you get the hang of it, it's you can really do quite a bit of production. Well, it's the act of making pottery on the wheel. I like to tell my students when I'm teaching pottery, pottery has all these fancy terms. So throwing, you take the clay and you throw it, literally throw it onto the wheel. It's a lump of clay, and then you begin the process of molding it. Mostly I do wheel thrown pottery. I do hand building as well. When I first started, I did a lot of hand building. I did a lot of sculpture. Once I learned the wheel, I started doing both. Sometimes I might do something that incorporates both techniques. When I'm teaching, I teach wheels. I teach hand building, and then I teach people the wheel. Why? Because a lot of times people may not get a grasp of making the wheel in a 1 hour, 2 hour class, right? So at least you have some pieces to take. But I help people along. To make a piece of pottery, I have to prepare the clay. I have to wedge the clay. So that's a word as well. Wedging is a process of preparing the clay where you are making sure the particles come together, that all the air pockets come out of it, and so on. You get it into a nice ball, and then I sit at the wheel, I throw it onto the wheel, I sit and I use the techniques to center it, to open it up, to raise the cylinder if I am doing a tall piece. If it's a flat plate, it might, I go this way. So that's basically, and then you get the shape at the end of the day. So I could sit and make 6 pieces. Yesterday I sat and I made and I could sit and say I'm going to make 12 pieces. It doesn't mean I'm going to succeed in 12 pieces. So yesterday I wanted to make someone ordered from me some 9-inch dinner plates. And I sat down, I did 6 balls of clay initially, and I got only 4. And so I wedged up some more clay. I reworked the clay that fell apart, and I was able to do 3 more pieces. At the end of the day, I ended up with 7 plates. Hand building, there are different techniques. There's pinch pot, there's coiling, there's slab, there's slip cast pottery. I do have some molds where I could use slip. Slip is like when it's all creamy, you just let it and you pour it in. A lot of things that we use, a lot of the more commercial or stuff like toilet bowls, like a lot of the cups that you see in the stores and so on, they're just slip cast. Okay, so they use those because it's faster. It's very fast, and you can make a lot, and everything is the same size. It's that sort of thing. So if you want consistency, but with the wheel, yes, you can get consistency, but there will always be some little differences. With hand building, definitely, I don't know that you can make 2 pieces exactly the same unless you're using a mold. And again, another word, a mold will give you the same shape each and every time. So in different cultures over the world, as man progressed, they discovered clay, when heated, becomes a ceramic product. And so the ceramics industry started. So all over the world, all different societies. Wherever there's clay, you would digging up the archaeologists find clay that dates back long time. I can't say specifically what part, but if life began in Africa, I will just say maybe that's what I would throw out there, because Africans have a long tradition as well of making clay. As a matter of fact, the clay, the style of pottery that they do in Nevis comes from our African ancestors. I have gone to many museums, and whenever I travel, I tend to go to museums to see the early work of potters around the world, and it's all seemed to be, starting off working with clays that they fire in a similar way. So before they built kilns, it was open firing, where they're using cow dung or dry branches. They played around with things for us to get to this point where today you have electric kilns and so on. The kiln is like an oven in which you fire your pottery. In Nevis, they're still using the old style, the bonfire. They do have a kiln, but they tend to use the big bonfire, getting all of these branches and so on to fire up, to make a big fire and fire up the clay. When I first started, I got clay from Nevis. Then I had done a stint of training in Barbados. So I used to order clay from a Barbados pottery. Barbados has really good clay. And in recent years, since we had a workshop here at the craft house where a potter came from St. Lucia. And so we were able to get clay. He buys clay from the US. So since that workshop, that's about 2009, I've been getting clay from the US rather than from Barbados.
We will be right back with more from traditional knowledge bearer and potter, Carla Astaphan.
If you're HIV positive or have an STI, having unprotected sex with multiple partners puts them in grave danger. You will expose every partner and their present and future partners to HIV or another STI. Use a condom every time you have sex. You can live a productive life even if diagnosed with HIV. Remember, early detection is key to your survival. Be responsible, protect yourself and others. Help stop the spread of HIV and other STIs.
It's time that we realize that we must work together to thrive.
The world as we know it, the sky and below it. Could I never have more wonder? Yeah, with life and all you see and the climate's changing.
But hope is remaining.
And we can't ignore the future. It depends on you and me. One chance, all that we got. One voice, together we start. Take care, the world where we live. Permite a todos vivir. Tomamos la oportunidad para guardar la humanidad. And I must leave no one behind because we are one climate, one Caribbean. One climate, one Caribbean.
Healthwise on ZIZ TV, Mondays at 8:30 p.m. Hosted by Dr. Monique Lescott, Dr. Jolette Woodley, and Dr. Patrice Lawrence.
Our traditional knowledge bearer, Carla Astaphan, continues by relating how networking can help your business to expand.
Of course, you can make a living out of making pottery, and many people make a living out of it. I have a small studio. I do quite a bit of work, I would say, but there are potters who employ people. Okay, they have a lot more staff. So they can do a lot of production. As I told you earlier, there's a lot of things made from clay. So it depends on where you want to go. I decided to just have a small studio, but it can actually go much bigger than that. There are tools to make me produce in a much more cost-efficient way. So it's just about the individual and how much you have that you can invest. I have exported over the years. I've exported to Dominica, I've exported to the British Virgin Islands, to Anguilla, to Antigua. Back in those days, they used to have a show called the Caribbean Gift and Craft Market. I used to attend that, so I used to get some orders. I remember, so one of my first orders was to Jamaica. So in those places, you meet persons with shops in the region who are looking for local. They're no longer having that market. That market, we actually hosted it here in St. Kitts. I think in 2006, we had it here in St. Kitts. So it's no longer coming here. So I focus mostly on the local market, but some people do still order from overseas and from time to time. Oh. But I'm primarily focused on the tourism and local now. As Nevis has been doing pottery forever. They're yabba pots, coal pots. People love that style of pottery. So everybody has their own niche in the market. And there was a time when I think it was just myself and Ras Tesseroy doing pottery here. There was the Newcastle pottery. I think there was another guy in Nevis. Since the workshop that the craft house had, we had held in 2009, we had people like Arlene Skerritt, we had another girl, she does little monkeys and so on, pigs and so on, she does pottery. Dale Isaac, who was well known for her hats, and Dale was very instrumental in getting me into the market, because Dale, with her hats, she used to go to Four Seasons, and she would invite me along with her to show my work, to sell my work. And so that helped me to see what's possible. She got me into the Caribbean Gift and Craft Show and so on. And today she's doing pottery. So she comes by me here to fire, because she doesn't have a kiln. So she fires her work. I should actually have a kiln of us to fire right now. The schools, they're teaching pottery in the schools. So for CXC, I fired all the children's work here. Okay, so the teacher brings the work, they fire it, they go back, they glaze it, they come back, fire it. So all of that is being done right here. On Facebook, I am the Potter's House St. Kitts. On Instagram, Potter's House St. Kitts. No, just Potter's House St. Kitts. On TikTok, I'm as Carla Astaphan. So I need to make a different page and actually make it Potter's House as well. But I haven't done that. But I do post, and I what's the word that you hashtag a lot. So people looking actually find me. Recently, I had a woman at her date. They came here one Saturday morning, and I was teaching them pottery. And like everyone else, she said, "This is so therapeutic." She just wants to keep doing it. I saw her doing videos. So lo and behold, this woman had been taking little snippets with her camera. I didn't really think much of it. I was just doing what I had to do. So next thing my daughter said to me, "Mommy, you're on TikTok." So she did, she was from Nevis. She and her partner came over, and she did a TikTok on all that she did in St. Kitts that Saturday, and part of it was coming here. I didn't even know she was videographing me. I say I need to dress properly every time people come here. So here am I walking, all the little things that we did, showing her, she was able to capture all of that. And she said at the end of the day, it was a 10 out of 10 experience for her. There was another couple, she follows me on Instagram as well. She was from California. She and her husband, they came on their motorbike. They came here. And as we were talking, I telling them, they're asking me questions just like you about how I started and so on. And I bring up Mary House. And she's this woman in California. She says, "I believe that's the lady I learned pottery with as a child." Can you imagine? I was getting goosebumps, like goosebumps, because She said her mother used to take her to this woman who had a studio in her backyard, just like I have. And she said she disappeared. So when we did the math, she was maybe about 8 years old, 12, 8, 9, 10, somewhere about there. And Mary had come to St. Kitts, had left California, come to St. Kitts to work as a Peace Corps volunteer. So they lost touch. So they were able to connect. I had found Mary on Facebook some years ago, and I was able to connect them. And yes, it turned out to be actually true. So her memory was correct. So you just never know what can happen. From discovering the world, going to places, I represented the island, the Caribbean, you could say, along with other potters at a show in Belgium. In 2002, I had to take my work. Myself and Almina went from Nevis, from the Nevis Newcastle Pottery. I attended shows in Barbados, Antigua, St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Martin. Don't know if I'm missing any other places, but it has I've been able to see, other places, showcase my work there. On a more personal level, it's I can be a very sometimes you go through different things in life, so it can center you. So just as I center the clay, so too it centers me, right? I'm lucky. I was telling someone on a radio show recently, I'm lucky to have pottery because pottery is very therapeutic. So if I'm feeling down, if I'm feeling flustered, whatever it is, I can still calm myself by getting in my pottery studio and doing some work. It would be nice to get clay from Barbados, but even, I know the Barbados potters are just like Nevis. Everywhere there's development. And so you hear a lot of potters today are suffering because there's less and less clay available. So Nevis as well, even over in Nevis, my potter friends in Nevis, they are challenged because, the places where they used to dig clay is going to be developed. So once that is done, then that's going to be an end of the industry. In Barbados, I remember being in Barbados and actually heard Mr. Bell. He's now deceased, God rest his soul. He was the one who taught me, and he's who I used to buy my clay from. And I actually heard him on the radio when I was in Barbados a couple of years ago, lamenting the fact that they are struggling to get their local clay as well. Ordering the clay, sometimes, they may not have clay when you actually want it, but generally speaking, that part of it is quite straightforward. I can get clay from different pottery houses, of different pottery companies that sell clay, that sell tools, that sell glazes. So it's easier. It's not it's not hard. And again, clay isn't dutiable. All the other things that I use, my equipment, my glazes, and all of those things, they do attract duty. But clay itself is not a dutiable product. So it's not it's not something that is that poses any great challenge, except making back the money to buy the clay. Well, yes, since I started doing pottery way back, I have been teaching at camps. There's the summer camp that I remember Jeffrey Hanley, our now Minister of Education, used to run the youth camp, and he would always call me. I have gone to when it was at Beach Island or it's out in the country. Different people who run camps would call me for me to teach. So I'd come and do work. I have worked. I advertise so that people can come here and teach pottery. I can teach them pottery as well. The students, raw students, locals, people come on dates and so on. So I've been able to open up my studio, expand my studio I bought more pottery wheels than I used to just have one or two. And so now I have like 10 wheels so people can come here as a group, and that has worked out quite well. Yes, I've had courses. When in 2022, when I expanded the pottery, I ran a course for 4 weeks. Students came here twice a week to learn pottery over a 4-week period. After the 4 weeks, most of them are re-signed for another 4 weeks. But pottery is a very, I could say it's an expensive hobby. The clay, the glazes, the time and all of that. Especially if you want to learn the wheel, you need to put in the time. I always tell students, I used to come home every afternoon and sit in my studio and try and throw about 12 balls of clay. You know, that was my sweet thing. 12 balls, I knead it up, I cut up 10 balls of clay. At the end of the day, I may only get 4 pieces that look sort of sukadam, you know. But that's the reality. You cannot want to save every piece. There's a potter in Angola, Mr. Courtney Devonish, quite famous. He said he doesn't encourage his students to keep their first pieces. But when people come to my studio, I help them through so at least they get a piece that they could, you know, live with to finish up. But for you to really get good at it, it takes, like anything else on the planet, work, practice, and so on. So to become good, you have to put in the work. Come to the potter's house. I could teach you pottery and you can build on it. You can get your own equipment eventually once you feel like that is something that you really want to stick to, and you can start yourself a business.
We hope that you have been enriched with knowledge concerning the element of pottery that has earned its place in St. Kitts and Nevis in the ICH domain of traditional craftsmanship. We thank Carla Astaphan for sharing her knowledge with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe our pages and channel at Facebook at SKNICH or ICHSKN, YouTube at St. Kitts Culture, and X or Twitter at St. Kitts Culture. Join us again next time because together we can safeguard our heritage.